Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't just struggling to get across the finish line, it is on a collision course with failure, and that's due to one of Ubisoft's biggest problems, bloated studios. Salam, my name is Mustafa, I am a professional game developer, my studio name is Suburb Path. In this video I'm going to break down why bloated development teams are ruining AAA game development, why bigger teams don't necessarily mean better games, how Ubisoft's DEI policies are affecting their quality, the consequences of outsourcing too much work, and how bloated studios leads to inefficiencies and delays. Ubisoft is just one example of this larger industry-wide problem, and understanding this issue is key to knowing why so many AAA games are uninspired and broken. Ubisoft has publicly stated its commitment to diversity and inclusion, with Vice President of Global Diversity and Inclusion, Rashi Sika, emphasizing that Ubisoft aims to, quote, build the most creative, inclusive, and diverse teams across all fields, end quote, by increasing representation and ensuring equal access to opportunities. One way Ubisoft enforces this commitment is through its mentorship programs, which are exclusively available to women and non-binary developers. According to Ubisoft's official website, the Develop at Ubisoft program, quote, provides mentorship opportunities for women and non-binary individuals, students or fresh graduates with less than 2 years of experience, interested in video games to develop their skill set in game design and programming, end quote. While mentorship is valuable, these programs exclude men and raises concern about whether this discrimination extends to hiring practices. If mentorship opportunities are restricted based on gender and identity, is hiring also influenced by these same considerations? Ubisoft has made it clear that they prioritize increasing representation. When the goal is to have a certain outcome of demographics being represented in your company, that means demographics become a priority and a qualifier during the hiring process. When hiring prioritizes gender, identity, and demographics, teams risk lacking the essentials to develop high-quality games. Patrick Cote, an executive at Ubisoft, admitted that half of the developers working on Assassin's Creed Shadows have never shipped a game before. Quote, one of the things that I've noticed since the pandemic is that we have a lot of juniors in our teams. Probably half the team that's building Assassin's Creed is building a game for the first time. End quote. There's nothing wrong with hiring junior developers. It's actually great to offer opportunities to people without experience. But when half the team doesn't have experience, that means the other half needs to hold their hand and make sure that they do things correctly. Also, the problem isn't just hiring the wrong people, it's hiring too many people, leading to bloated teams making production inefficient. Ubisoft keeps growing their teams, but bigger isn't always better. Assassin's Creed Valhalla had over 1,000 developers working across 17 studios, yet it still launched with major bugs and performance issues. This isn't just a Ubisoft problem. Many major AAA games suffer from large, inefficient development teams. Gaming revenue exploded during the 2020 lockdowns. This led to investors and shareholders demanding more expansion and hiring. The industry moved toward larger, more cinematic open-world games. Alongside the rise of live service models that require continuous updates. Both of these trends led to bigger development teams to manage complex worlds and long-term content support. Publishers like Ubisoft started spreading work across multiple studios, creating unnecessary complexity. This leads to the fallout of oversized teams. Mass layoffs are happening because companies can't sustain these oversized teams with their large development costs. And yes, they are also not producing quality products that gamers want. While that's an important point to discuss, it's not the topic of this video. The more developers working on a game, the harder it is to keep a consistent vision. And instead of making production smoother, larger teams make development slow down. Let me go more into that by talking about Scrum and Agile development. So what is Scrum and Agile? Agile is a project management approach that breaks work into small, manageable tasks to increase flexibility. Scrum is a framework within Agile that structures work into short cycles called sprints that are usually 1 or 2 weeks long, where progress is reviewed frequently. These methods require frequent meetings for sprint planning, daily stand-ups, team reviews, cross-team communication, etc. This becomes overwhelming in large teams. You can only have so many people in one meeting, otherwise the meetings take too long. Plus, you get too many meetings for cross-team communication. This slows down decision making. Work weeks become dominated by discussions rather than development. Agile and Scrum were meant to speed things up, but when a team is too large, you're not being agile, you're just being inefficient. At my previous job, we were working Scrum and Agile. There would be times when half of my week was full of meetings. There were many meetings that I was scheduled to participate in, but they didn't really need me there. And because I was doing work from home, there would be lots of times where I would just turn off my webcam and start doing my work while the meeting is commencing. And I wasn't the only one who would do this. Lots of people would have their webcams off as well. And you know they're not paying attention to the meeting because when a question gets directed to them, they then ask to repeat the question. At least when we're doing work from home, we're able to multitask. But in a studio environment that doesn't have work from home, they're stuck in the meeting wasting time, especially if they have nothing to do in that meeting. In my opinion, when it comes to software development, smaller is better. Smaller teams lead to better communication and efficiency. When you have larger teams and more teams, you spend more time communicating between all those teams than you are actually developing. And then you have the outsourcing problem. Like many AAA studios, Ubisoft outsources large portions of their work worldwide. Outsourcing leads to inconsistent quality and disjointed game design. Outsourcing creates bottlenecks, forcing outsourced work to be sent back for revisions when it doesn't meet standards, delaying production timelines. Outsourcing also results to inconsistent animations. Ubisoft has faced criticism for outsourcing to studios with poor work conditions, such as Brandoville Games, which was reported to have exploitative labor practices. You'll find a link on the screen to my original video covering this topic. When so much of the game's development is scattered across multiple studios, the final product suffers from it. Instead of having a unified direction, the game ends up feeling inconsistent. A bloated development team means lack of alignment between teams, wasted time in meetings, poor communication between departments, and a game with no clear vision. Ubisoft isn't the only company struggling with this. This issue isn't unique to Ubisoft. It's an industry-wide problem where massive development teams create inefficiencies that negatively affect the final product. Assassin's Creed Shadows is just one of many examples of a larger issue. The AAA game industry is collapsing under its own weight. This is why so many big-budget games feel broken, rushed, and uninspired. Let me know what you think. Are game studios just getting too big for their own good? Tell me in the comments below. If you enjoy this content, you can support the channel by checking out my games, which are linked in the description below, such as Beware Tomorrow. You can wishlist it on Steam as it's currently in development right now. Thanks for getting this far in the video. Take care. Salam.